Claudette, if you're trying to speak, we can't hear you.
I'm not. Is it time? Oh, it is time. Hello. Welcome to the Massillon City Council meeting for Monday, July 20th, 2020. We have in attendance with us the following city officials. I'm going to tell you the ones I've seen. Safety Service Director Barb Sylvester, Law Director Justin Richard and Bill Bartos, Chief Engineer David Kroc and Jason Popeil, Economic Development Director David Maley, that's all I see. Am I missing anyone?
I'm on the mayor.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else?
Terry from the Health Department.
Thank you, Terry. Anyone
Debbie
else?
Bung from the Auditor's Office.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Under number 5 on the agenda is where the public can speak on any item that appears on tonight's agenda. And then again, under number 17 is where the public can speak on any item that does not appear on tonight's agenda. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Kramer,
Present.
Gregg,
Present.
Halter,
Here.
Hernkang,
Here.
Lewis,
Present.
Littman,
I know, I saw her.
Littman,
Linda, we can't hear you.
Try now, Linda. You're unmuted now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I am here.
Lombardi,
Here.
Starrett,
Here.
and Therrett.
Present.
Roll call of 9 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All present and accounted for. Councilman Lombardi.
Please join me in the Lord's Prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Go ahead, Mark.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
to the republic
to the
for which
republic
it
which stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
with liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Lombardi. Madam Clerk, are the minutes of the previous meeting transcribed and ready and open to the public viewing?
Yes, they are.
Are there any additions or corrections to be made?
No, there are not.
Thank you. Minutes stand approved as written. Point number 5 on the agenda is where anyone from the community can speak on any topic that appears on tonight's agenda. If you wish to do so, please state your name, address, and topic you wish to discuss, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If someone starts speaking, please be courteous and then speak after that person. Is there anyone that would like to address council? Hearing none. Moving along to item 6, new and miscellaneous business. Does anyone from council have anything?
President Eisnick, Mark Lombardi here.
Thank you, Mark. I was going to call on you if you hadn't spoken.
I wasn't sure if this is where you wanted to discuss this or not. I've been doing some research. I'm trying to get us back into council chambers. I talked with Bob Jones, who installed the sound system that we have, and it is possible to able to link that sound system into a computer so that our voices through the sound system would be able to go into the computer and be able to be broadcast through a WebEx session. So what this would mean is that we could put 10 people back into council chambers. It's going to cost us a little bit of money, just around $2,000 total with the quotes that I got. We would have to buy a laptop for Diane to be able to administer the WebEx session still. A laptop to put in the conference room, and the 11th person, we'd have to rotate out that 11th person or figure out some method of doing that. But we can put the 11th person over in the conference room. They can join by the WebEx session, and then the rest of us can meet face to face. I spoke with Terry Argent. She said that this should be fine as long as there are only 10. We'd have to go from the front door right to our seats, no congregating and conversing. When the weather gets colder, we're going to have to just take our coats, hang them on the backs of our chairs. We won't be able to congregate in the conference room or anything. Go right to your chairs. We're going to have to be masked. We have to be masked during the entire session, except when we're speaking, even though we still have the shields up. Terry looked it up on the state of Ohio directive, and we will still have to wear masks. When we're speaking, we can pull the mask down to make our voices, so the voices are clear, but then we'd have to put the mask right back on when we're done speaking. And then at the end of the meeting, immediately out to the front door, keeping at least a 6-foot distance between each other as we're going in and out of the building. The computer hardware is going to cost about $1,400, and that was quoted from Ohio Tech down on David Canary Drive, and then Bob Jones from the music shop. It's going to be around $600 to do the installation of the equipment he needs to use. And then we're also.
Price.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Eisner.
That 1,400 is included in the 2,000 already.
Yes.
Thanks.
And then we also have to buy just a small web camera to face towards council to show us into the WebEx session. So basically what this would look like is, if you look at Diane's square for Massillon City Council host, we would all be in that square. It would be council chambers pictured in that square. And then everybody else can join in just like normal here on the WebEx session. And then, as well as the public. So that's what I found out. I'm not sure what everybody feels about that, but it is possible for us to get business back into chamber.
I appreciate you looking into that, Mark. We did have a discussion on that. Does anyone have any questions? Nobody on council has any questions on that?
Yes, so Madam President, this is Mike Gregg. I do have a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
What would happen if we had to go into executive session in that scenario? Because if we can't all be in the conference room, how would we operate an executive session?
Well, we wouldn't have to leave our room because there's nobody but us in there, but we might have to exit the WebEx. On that.
the other question I have is, who would operate, or would someone need to operate the webcam that is broadcasting our video of council?
I spoke with Diane about that. She would probably be the one to run that. However, I did offer to her that if she wasn't comfortable doing that with everything else that she's doing, that I'd be more than happy to run it. My workstation's, right there next to where hers is.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Positive comment, negative comment? Hearing none. Thank you, Mark, for your input on that.
Madam President, looks like Councilwoman Littman wants to ask a question.
Can you hear me or no?
Yes,
Now
I
we
can
You
now.
were muted before.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I do have a quick question, President Eisnick. I was wondering if when we are in chambers, are we going to be able to be seen? Mark is indicating that we are going to be in this one little block. Is that one little block going to then fill the screen? Or when the public is able to see us and our discussion, we are simply going to be in this little 1 inch by 2 inch block?
Mark, do you have an answer?
Yes. We would all be in the one block. It would just be facing council chambers, and we'd all be seen in one picture. Kind of imagine, if you will, if you remember the last couple of sessions where Craig Sanders' group was pictured in a block, that's what we would look like.
Anyone
Madam
else?
President.
Yes,
Yes, Mike, Greg.
go ahead, Mike.
Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but won't it depend on the users on what view they choose from the web on their WebEx session? If they choose speaker view, then and we're the ones that are the speaker, then we will fill the entire screen. And otherwise, if they do grid view, which is what I think you're referring to, we'd be just one of the individual blocks. But if they choose, and again, this is up to the users that are logging in. If they choose the view of speaker view, they'll see us as almost their full screen.
That's correct, Mr. Gregg. However, we're still going to be in one picture.
Right.
I mean, just to clarify, no matter how they have it arranged on on the user's own computer, that's what they'll see. We'll either be in a block, or we'll be on their full screen, or we'll be tiled. It depends on what they choose, but the council will all be in one picture.
Right.
So,
Madam President,
go ahead.
I think Mr. Lombardi, a good helpful suggestion for all of us, if we do end up back in council chambers, is we all should probably just start identifying ourselves before we speak, since we will all be in one photo, one picture. It might be hard for those listening to determine who's talking. I think we can easily remedy that just by stating, this is Councilwoman Sterrett, and speak every time we kind of start speaking, so those listening know exactly who's talking. And that would kind of remedy the situation that we're all going to be in one big picture.
Plus, if we're all in the room, I will be calling on people and identifying you as well. So hopefully they'll know who is speaking. Councilman Lombardi, if some council people aren't comfortable coming in, could they still stay at home and do the call-in as they have been?
Absolutely. If they don't want to come in, they're more than welcome, then to just join WebEx just like we have here.
So, council people, what are your thoughts on that? Should we go ahead and try to get it up and running for our first meeting in August? And if you want to come in, you come in? Or do you want to just keep the courses going on?
This is Terry from the Health Department. May I speak real quickly, please?
Absolutely, Terry, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just caution that with the alert level sent out by the governor now, we have to be very conscious of that. We are currently at an orange level 2 alert level. Should we go to a level 3, a red level, it may be a little bit more important to not meet together. It kind of depends on where our numbers end up. We have, like I said, we're at an orange level now. Also, I want to be very cautious and very careful about cleaning the partitions and the areas where people sitting, where they're touching. Make sure there's a clean before and after each meeting. That's going to be very important. And I think that's just like I said, we have to be careful of those alert levels. That's a pretty big deal for whether meetings really should occur or not.
Has the governor come out and said not to meet if they're at a certain level?
It is recommended not to meet in person, not to be too much together if we're at a level red, which is level 3. Right now, we're at an orange level 2.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Hernkane?
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate Councilman Lombardi's work on this and yours as well, and I would support this effort to get back in chambers.
Anyone else?
This is Jim Thayer. I would prefer to be in chambers too.
So we have Ted and Jim. Anyone else?
President Eisnick,
Yes.
this is Linda Letman. Would we be able to perhaps choose ourselves from week to week as to whether we come into chambers or attend virtually?
Absolutely. I would not force anybody to come in that's not comfortable with it.
I
Ever.
would say even for other reasons. If we were, so it didn't really matter. If we were able to come in, we would come in. If we were not, I guess I'm thinking of even vacations where we wouldn't necessarily be able to attend personally. Are we still in attendance, considered in attendance virtually?
Yes.
As well. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? So does that mean you're in favor of this, Linda?
Yes, I am.
Anyone else? That's 3 out of 9. No other comments?
Just a minute.
Okay, Mrs. Eisnick, this is Nancy Halder. I'm in favor. I will be here.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else?
President, this is Jill Kramer. I would be in favor of it also, but I would also recommend if someone is planning on not coming in person to at least notify President Eisnick or Diane to let them know that they will be at home with the virtual.
In agreement? Anyone else? Mr. Lewis, you're awfully quiet. You're never quiet.
Madam President, this is Mike Gregg.
Yes.
I would say overall, yes, I'd like to be able to get into chambers. I think there's some details that need to be worked out, though, obviously, before we can do that. And I do think this is probably a capability that we should have going forward for any other future situation where we're not able to meet. It'd be nice to have this in place to easily and more seamlessly move to it than we have been able to do in the past. But as I said, I think there's some details that need to be discussed and worked out before we can just all show up at council chambers.
Okay.
I would just say that I'm fine with meeting in the chambers. I would say we probably need to work with the law department as well to make sure that we're following all guidelines. I think Ms. Littman brought up an excellent point about vacations. My concern would be that joining virtually while on vacation would not be in the spirit of the exception that we're currently being allowed to meet virtually and could cause issues later. So just to have them look at it and make sure that we're not going to be violating something would be useful.
How do you know I'm not in Florida right now, Ed?
Because I know what your house looks like.
All right. Anyone else? That's
Oh,
one.
I mean, in all honesty, I don't care where you are, but we want to make sure that doesn't pose an issue.
Right. Okay, there's still 2 more out there. Any questions or any Comments?
Claudette, this is Megan Starrett. I don't have an issue. I think I agree with Mr. Lewis. We just need to be fluid about it. And Mr. Gregg, make sure we have all of the research done and maybe follow the health department directives. You know, if Terry Argent tells us it's getting the alert levels too high, we need to be prepared to go back to virtual. But I don't see an issue with attempting to make it back into council chambers.
Okay. I don't think Terry would decide. I think Terry's taking her lead from the governor, but yes, I'm in agreement. And I'm in agreement that, you know, if you're comfortable coming in one week and not another, that's fine with me until this whole thing blows over. So Mark and I will continue talking and we'll see where it goes. And
President Eisnick?
yes, Linda.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. Who would be responsible for the cleaning of the council desks and partitions, chairs, etc., prior to our arrival and upon our departure? Are we to be responsible for that, or will there be a custodian that will be responsible for making sure that the disinfectant part of the scenario is complete?
Diane, do you have an answer to that?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Do we have a cleaning crew?
We do for City Hall, but since I'm here in council chambers, I think that responsibility would fall on me.
Do you have a problem with that?
No, I do not. If you want to give me a raise. No, I mean, I would be in here the following morning after the council meeting. So, I mean, it would be logical that I would be the one that would be.
Okay. All right, I guess that's it with that.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Lewis.
or we could all just be responsible and clean our own space before we sat down and clean our space when we were done. And then we don't have to make our clerk do it.
That would be fine. All things that need to be worked out. Okay. Anything else under new and miscellaneous business? All right, moving into introduction of ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 71, 2020.
An ordinance amending sections 2 and 4 of ordinance number 70, 2017, appointing the city records custodian and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Gregg?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Before I start, I noticed Jim, Councilman Third had his hand up, I think, on the last topic, if he wanted to say something, and I don't know, Jim, or do you still wish to speak?
If it's pertinent here, there was two things that, two quick items. First of all, shout out to our police department for doing a wonderful job throughout the city. And several concerned citizens asked me to make sure that I said tonight, we didn't want our police department defunded. I told them we don't have any plans on that right now, but I promised that I would bring it up. And secondly, a question about submitting of the forms for the small business loans that are out there. There was a question about, because I don't believe you can get into the bank building anymore at this point in time. So does this have to be done by mail, email? Maybe somebody in the administration can answer that. Thank you.
Madam President,
Councilman Lewis?
maybe we just can take that question under reports of committees or request of council members, since we've already started the current piece.
Is that all right with you, Mr. Therrett?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. All right. Going back to ordinance number 71, 2020. Councilman Gregg?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. This ordinance, some questions will come up regarding this as well. So I think that needs to be discussed further next week in our committee meetings. So I'm going to give this first reading.
Thank you. Ordinance number 71, 2020 has received first reading. Ordinance number 72, 2020.
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety of the City of Massillon, Ohio, to execute the preliminary participatory legislation with the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, for the STA SR 24109.71 Wales Road Resurfacing Project PID 100471 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Barrett?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. This is the initial legislation we need to start just basically to allow the state to come in and start the Wales Road project. As I understand it, maybe if the engineers want to contribute anything at this point in time, probably a good idea to have them answer
Yeah,
any questions.
this is Jason. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is just the standard. You're right, Jim. This is just the standard participatory legislation for the Wales Road, saying that we're going to pay our 20% in costs, and if we decide to
Appeal?
extend, hello.
Okay.
If we decide to extend it beyond the limits, then we'd be 100% responsible. This is part of the ODOT safety funding.
Thank you.
Are there any members of council or especially our committee that would like to add or subtract from that?
I have a question, President.
Councilwoman Kramer?
Just clarification from what Jason Propil just stated. For this project, you said we would be responsible for 20%. I thought this was a 90-10%. Am I confusing it with another project for Wales Road?
No, there's several sources of funding. The federal funding is a 90-10. This is the agreement with ODOT, and their portion is 80-20.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Councilman Barrett?
If there are no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to waive the rules requiring 3 readings and move this forward for a vote tonight.
Seconded by Councilwoman Kramer. Roll call for suspension.
Gregg,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Ern King,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Littman,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Starrett,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
and Creamer.
Yes.
9 yes for suspension.
And for passage.
Halter,
Yes.
Ern King,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Littman,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Starrett,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
and Gregg.
Yes.
9 yes for passage.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 72, 2020 has passed. Is there any unfinished business?
No, there is not.
Are there any petitions and general communications?
No, there are not.
Are there any bills, accounts, or claims?
Yes, we have a bill in the amount of $2,400 for the safety shields that are now in council chambers payable to Start Glass. We have a bill in the amount of $431.60 for the publication of our May ordinances. And then our WebEx subscription for July in the amount of $15.92 for a total of $2,847.52. And before we take the vote on this, I was informed by Deputy Auditor Debbie Bonk that the $2,400 can be submitted to the auditor's office and be paid out of the COVID funds.
So will we be paying this bill or not then?
We have to get permission. You have to vote on it to be paid, but it will come out of the COVID funds instead of out of council chambers budget.
Thank you. And if we do what Mr. Lombardi and I had talked about, getting back into chambers, would that also be paid out of that special fund?
I'm pretty sure that it would. Debbie, I believe you're on the call.
I am Diane. This is Debbie Bonk.
Would that be
Yes.
eligible for COVID funds also?
I would suspect, yes, it is a COVID, an expense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lewis,
I make a motion to pay the bills.
seconded by,
Councilwoman Sarah,
roll call?
Kern Kane,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Littman,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Starrett,
yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gregg,
Yes.
and Halter.
Yes.
9 yes to pay the bills.
Thank you. The clerk will pay the bills and charge them to their proper accounts. Are there any reports from city officials?
Yes, we have the mayor's report for May 2020. We have the treasurer's report for June 2020 and the auditor's report for June 2020.
Councilman Lewis,
I make a motion that we accept the auditor's report.
seconded by,
Councilwoman Littman,
seconded by Councilman Littman. Roll call?
Does it have to be seconded by a finance committee member?
I was waiting.
Councilwoman
Second
Sarah,
by Councilman Gregg.
Second by Councilman Gregg. Does it have to be? I know we'd like it to be, but does it have to be?
I don't know if it says anywhere in the rules that we would have to have a second from the committee.
Okay, I always like it seconded by someone from the committee, but if no one does, I guess I'll start taking it from whoever seconds it. Okay, roll call. Did we do roll call?
No.
Roll
Lewis,
call.
Yes.
Littman,
yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Starrett,
yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Creamer,
Yes.
Gregg,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
and Hernkane.
Yes.
9 yes to accept the auditor's report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The auditor's report has been accepted. Our next work session will be next Monday, July 27th, 2020 at 6:30 PM. Does anyone have anything else? Is there a planning commission meeting on the 23rd? Did I read that?
Yes.
And that is pertaining to what? It's not pertaining to the church on the corner of Hills and Dales and Wales, is it?
I don't know the details. I just know it got scheduled for the 23rd.
Does anyone know what that one is about?
Madam President,
Yes. Thank you, David.
you
Go
hear
ahead.
me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a planning commission meeting on the 23rd.
I thought I read that someplace.
Yeah,
We
we
got
received
one
an
email.
We meet from who?
Madam President,
Yes, Diane.
I received notice today of a rescheduled Board of Zoning Appeals public meeting. Due to a conflict last Thursday, the public meeting for the Board of Zoning Appeals has been rescheduled for Thursday, July 23rd, 2020 at 6 p.m. This meeting will be held via Uber teleconference. Interested parties may call at 6 p.m. at 330-362-8327, but it does not mention what the subject of the meeting is.
It wouldn't be for the church property on Hills and Dales and Wales, would it? I know that is such a hot topic with the neighbors, and I would hate for that to be in there.
Yeah, Madam President, that is
Yes.
not, I can't answer what that's specifically for. I would doubt that it's for that. I believe Diane received something from the church about withdrawing their application. Is that correct, Diane?
That is correct.
Yes. The next planning commission meeting would be the second Wednesday of the month. And I anticipate possibly that they'll possibly try to come back for that meeting, but we have not heard anything yet.
Thank you. Number 14, call of the calendar.
Excuse me, Madam President,
Yes, sir.
request and resolutions of council members.
Yes.
I believe Mr. Thayer would have something.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Thayer.
Yeah, the question I had specifically involved how to submit the forms for this COVID-19 funds that we have for the businesses. As I understand it, we understand that the Huntington building, the bank building, is closed to the public. So how would we submit these forms? How do folks do it?
Can someone address that issue?
And Madam President, why they address that issue? Can we piggyback and get a report on how that is going?
Yeah,
as well?
that'd be great.
Can someone help us on that one?
Can you hear me? This is the
Yes.
mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening, Madam President, members of council. As of today, we now have 14 businesses that have applied for the program, and they'll receive up to $5,000 per business. So it's still not a lot of businesses. We're waiting to have more. In fact, I was on a call today with Representative Thomas West and talked about our program and encouraged our businesses to apply. And Barb Sylvester's trying to speak as well, but she's muted.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Maley.
this is Dave Maley. I know that the applications are going to Samantha Walters. I got a few calls. I know that we have a mail slot in the side of the building that people are dropping off their applications in there addressed to Miss Walters.
Thank you. Did that answer your questions, Mr. Thayer?
Madam President, Megan Starrett as well, if I can.
Yes,
Just for clarity, when you go on the city's website on the community development page, it is the first thing on the page, the COVID-19 CDBG Emergency Business Loan Program. And the application itself is downloadable as well as Samantha Walters' contact information is the first thing on the community development page for the city's website. So all of the information is available on the website. The application's downloadable plus a large amount of information. So that should be helpful to a lot of business owners. And as Mr. Maley said, they would just have to probably drop it off. And if they have any questions, I'm sure Samantha would walk them through the entire process.
Right. They told me that they have the forms filled out and ready to submit. Question was how to get them submitted. So they can physically take them to the bank building and there's a mail slot on the Lincoln Way side or on the City Hall Street side.
It's located on City Hall Street, Jim.
Okay.
But they can also scan those and email those back to Sam Walters.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll let them know the options. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam President?
Yes, Ms. Lippman.
Thank you. I would like to ask the timeline. Once the application is received by Samantha, what type of timeline do they have before they hear approval or denial, or if there's any other further information needed, and what amount they will be entitled to?
Can someone address this, please?
Madam President, are you
Madam
able to hear me?
President, go ahead, Barb.
No, go ahead, Dave. I didn't know if I got unmuted or not. Go ahead, Dave. You know the same answers.
Yeah, I regretfully, I do not know that answer. I can check, and I'm sure Samantha Walters would give us more information on that, but I do not know that right offhand.
Ms. Sylvester, do you know?
I do know that, yes, as it's stated in the information that they will receive, she will process all the applications immediately. But again, she's still waiting for the final confirmation back from HUD. And so as soon as they release the funding and they give her the final approval of all of the plans, then she will go ahead with them. But she is working all applications as soon as she's receiving them.
Thank you. Anyone else?
President, Mr. Hurricane.
Go ahead, Councilman Hurricane.
I would just like to remind everyone that 14 applications submitted are 14 that I would assume are eligible for this program. There are businesses out there that I've talked to, and maybe some others that don't meet the 30% revenue loss or the low to moderate income employee retention. So I wouldn't say that 14 applicants for this program is entirely indicative of the need out there for these type of assistances.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Lewis.
as a follow-up, something I think many of us can do is something I've been doing, and that is any business owner that I speak to, I encourage them to at least inquire and contact Ms. Walters so that we can have data. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we need data that drives what we are able to offer to our community. And when there is no data, we cannot take a shot in the dark. So if you are a business that would have a need, please at least call down to Ms. Walters, let her know of your need, even if you don't qualify, so we can start to track some data that helps us better gauge and form any policies that may be forthcoming.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'd like to just make a comment about our police department. This past weekend, my little neighborhood had a garage sale, a big garage sale, and there was a cop outside of my driveway. And I went out, I said, "Are you here for me, officer?" Thinking, you know, he was going to hand me some papers because that's what they do. He goes, "No, ma'am." He goes, "There's some little girls down there selling lemonade and I'm waiting for my partner and we're going to go down and buy lemonade." I said, "Would you like something to drink?" He goes, "No, ma'am, I want to support the little girls." And I just thought that was really pretty cool. So hats off to the police department. Okay, ordinance number 11, 2020.
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety of the City of Massillon, Ohio, to exercise the option to renew the engineer contract with OHM Advisors for the years 2020, 2021, and 2022, and declaring an emergency. And this ordinance was tabled June 15th, 2020 until tonight, July 20th, 2020.
Councilman Lewis?
Yes, I'd call upon a member of the administration to give us an update of the progress on this.
Good evening, members of council. This is the mayor. Back in June, I wrote a letter to the Ohio Ethics Commission asking for guidance on this issue. We received too many conflicting opinions on what was right, what wasn't right. And David Kroc is here tonight to explain the results of that. And he has previously sent out a small PowerPoint to each of you. I hope you received it, but I'll turn it over to David at this time. David?
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. As the mayor mentioned, wanted to come tonight and appreciate the time to update everyone on the efforts we've been taking really since right around the first of the year, as we've been trying to get to a resolution on the questions that were brought up regarding the contract. So I guess the bottom line here, there were two questions raised by the law director. One, can the city engineer hire an engineering firm as city engineer? And the second question was, can an engineering firm be city engineer as well as do project design? So we posed those two questions to 4 different agencies. One was the American Council of Engineering Companies. The second was the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association. Third was the National Society of Professional Engineers, and the fourth was the State Board of Registration for Engineers and Surveyors in Ohio. These 4 questions, or these 4 agencies, we posed these questions to them before the mayor talked to the Ethics Commission, and I'll explain why that order here shortly. But all 4 of those agencies came back and said yes, that the city can hire an engineering firm as their city engineer. So that was pretty clear. The second question as to whether the engineering firm can be a city engineer as well as provide project design, we got three answers that were the same, and then one that was slightly different. So the first 3, Ohio Administrative Code 4733 has ethics for engineers as part of that code, and the QBS selection process, Ohio Revised Code 153, were three of the items that were pointed to by two of the agencies, ACEC as well as the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association. Both of them felt like, provided there was transparency and disclosure in the contract, which there was, as those contracts were before council both in 2016 and in 2017. They felt like that was appropriate. The National Society of Professional Engineers actually has a case study on this through their ethical review board, and they came back and supported this as well as being okay. The State Board of Registration supported sort of part A of this and said as so long as there's transparent and full disclosure on public projects that they were okay with it. However, they did say check with the Ohio Ethics Commission on ORC 2921.42. And that is where we got to that point probably in May or early June, at which point the mayor thought it best to go ahead and ask the Ethics Commission the same set of questions. And the answers that we got back from them was, first of all, the Ethics Commission essentially did not answer the first question, whether or not the city could hire an engineering firm. They said that was not under their jurisdiction. But the second part, they answered it in sort of two different ways. And this is where the clarity becomes a little bit of an issue. They said the city can, so long as the city includes standard engineering services, professional design services, as well as the private sector development review in the main contract, that the city could effectively hire an engineering firm to do both the city engineer role as well as public projects. And those are the exact three tasks that were in the contracts placed before you in 2016, 2017, and then up for the renewal in 2020. Part three of that, though, is that the Ethics Commission said that a private engineering firm serving in the capacity of city engineer is considered a public official subject to ORC 2921.42. So we found ourselves in a situation where it just seems to be very unclear that we have multiple agencies saying very similar things, but not being completely clear with the issue. So we requested a call with Senator Kirk Schuring to see if the state legislature would address this issue, as there are over 100 cities like Massillon in the state that have private engineering firms as their city engineer. And this seems something appropriate for the state to take up and try to amend and provide clarity for once and for all. Senator did agree to provide an amendment to a current bill that's working its way through the State House, provided we were able to provide some language that both ACEC, the American Council of Engineering Companies, as well as the Ohio Municipal League, so long as those two agencies supported it in the language, that they would then take that from there and try to get some language to really just to clarify this issue. It's I never knew it was a cloudy issue until we dug as deeply as we did into this, and it seems to be a little bit cloudy. So I guess my suggestion or my request tonight is that the council would allow us some time to work with the state legislator to try to resolve this issue once and for all. So that would be sort of point one of the recommendation. Point two would be the option to maintain the current interim status that the city engineer currently has. OHM advisors continue to use the 2019 contract until this issue is addressed. And then part three of that would be, once this is finally cleared up by the state, then the city would go out through the QBS process and select an engineering consultant to fill that role once everything is cleared up. But until it is, it seems like the wrong time to be doing that when there's still a lot of confusion around the issue. So with that, I will pause. Happy to take questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Councilman Lewis?
So from what I'm hearing, it sounds like the most appropriate, if I'm understanding correctly, the most appropriate next step would be to table this yet again, maybe for 60 or 90 days to see what you're able to do at the state level so that we can make an educated decision.
Yes, my understanding is that the legislature will be back in session in September. And I have a meeting with the board at ACEC in August where I'm going to present this, ask them to support it and move this forward. So hopefully as early as September, this could gain some traction at the legislature. I don't know how long it will take to get through, but our hope would certainly be at some point this fall, the fix could be.
Well, with that said, Madam President, I personally wouldn't have an issue of just tabling this until the first meeting of October, allowing plenty of time for this to get in front of the legislator and them to do what they need to do.
Madam President?
Yes, Linda.
Thank you. Could we have more information on the cities that have the private engineering firms already as their city engineers? Are they cities that are similar to ours, or are there other nuances regarding those cities that they don't have the same type of issue that we are currently having? Is it a matter of a difference of opinion in their law department? Or I guess what has precluded them from bringing this issue to surface where we are the ones doing this?
Ms. Lippman, best I can understand, I had not, this had never been raised to me before in all the years I've been doing this. And I don't know if it's been raised to anyone else before or not, but I think, my sense was once this was raised and we got into it as deeply as we did, we felt like it just should be addressed and cleared up for everybody so that no one else has an issue on this moving forward. I could ask the engineering organization to maybe provide us a list as best they can of all the cities in the state who might be affected by this if this wasn't changed. But that would probably be the best I could do there.
Madam President, I have one more question.
Go ahead, Linda.
Is there cost to the city for the research and time spent by you, or others in your firm in trying to get this issue resolved?
No, Ms. Lippman, this has all been time that we have spent on our own cost to do the research.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Madam President, it's Jim Theroux.
Go ahead, Jim.
You mentioned, Mr. Crock, the continuing the contract. Is that a viable option for us? That because I know we have projects ongoing. Would that be something we can actually exercise?
Well, I'll speak for myself. I would have to defer to the administration of the law director on the legalities of it. But from our standpoint, OHM advisors would be okay with that and acceptable to that, yes.
I would say Madam President, I would say from a council's perspective, we've already budgeted for it. And there's not a contract in front of us, so there would be nothing for us to necessarily approve. It would seem it would come down to an administrative call.
Madam President?
Yes.
This is Bill Bartos from the Law Department. If you wouldn't mind, I could address some issues from the Law Department's perspective.
Please do.
Okay, thank you. With regard to the continuing from a month-to-month perspective until perhaps maybe the state legislature acts, I think that's fundamentally flawed for potentially several reasons. For one, the idea of going to month was based on the idea that there's, an exception to the law that allows for the city to act in emergency situations. Obviously, if you don't have a city engineer, which is the situation that the city was in at the beginning of the year, you could, that's an emergency. But at the same time, you cannot justify, creating or indefinitely extending, your own emergency by not acting until you get the, results or the language you want in the law. And also, depending on how long this actually goes, how many months this would extend, council does have to approve any, contracts, if you will, that exceed $50,000. And so, it'd be up to the auditor to monitor, this month-to-month transaction and how much is being spent on that and ensure that it doesn't exceed $50,000. And there would have to be an approval there in my mind. And there's, secondly, there's no guarantee that the legislature is going to act. And even if they do act, I think one of the problems here is, we have all these different organizations that have weighed in, they've given their opinion, but there's a real mix of both public procurement law, engineering ethics, general public official ethics here, that only the law director, the elected legal advisor of city officials of the city of Massillon, has the ability to give the comprehensive, conclusive legal advice on. All of these other groups, they look at these things from their narrow, points of view, and, to the extent that they can. In fact, the Ohio Ethics Commission even said, we can't answer these questions, regarding can the city have a city engineer, a firm as a city engineer. We can't answer what terms can be in, that contract if they can. The law directors are the appropriate person to advise you on that. So this idea of continuing on month to month, that emergency justification goes away. And so continuing on in this manner is not advised by the law department at this point.
This is the mayor. May I speak for a moment?
Yes, go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. We have gotten conflicting opinions from the law department as well. Mrs. Bartos actually told us to approve the contract for 1 year and then try to work this out. We said, well, if it's wrong today, then why is it wrong? Why should we approve it for a year? So we tried to go month to month so we could work this through. And we've done everything that we're supposed to do. We've asked the Ethics Commission. In our law department, as much as I respect them, it's just an opinion. And that's why we went to the Ethics Commission. We are getting conflicting comments from the law department, and we're trying to figure everything out. None of us have a law degree, but we want to do what's right and just in this situation. And that's why we are going month to month, because we are in an emergency situation. We must have an engineer in the city. And so there's nothing we can do until we figure this out. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Madam President.
Councilman Lewis.
From my perspective, I think we have to look at this as the legislative body of the city of Massillon and what is within our responsibilities and authority in the city. We have already budgeted for engineering services within the city, and the administration then has the responsibility of overseeing how those engineering services are distributed, whether that is through the hiring of a city engineer or if that's contracting services. This council has not approved a contract yet because the administration is working with an engineering firm that has not required that yet. So we have not had to take action. So as we currently stand, this legislative body has not moved incorrectly. So I think we have only three options. One, we just table this and we continue to leave it up to the administration as to how they want to handle it. If that is not satisfactory for this council, then we can take one of two other roads. We can defund the engineering services and tell the administration that we will not refund it until, or put the funds back in until there's a satisfactory answer. Or we can put forth a legislation request and make an ordinance that says that we will only accept a city engineer that is hired and an employee of the city. But we have to look at this within the framework of what is within our authority. So, I mean, we can ask whatever questions and get all the information. That's always good, but I just want to make sure that we're all looking at it as what can we or can't we do. When we start talking about we cannot extend the emergency, city council is not the one extending an emergency. If someone's trying to extend this out, and I'm not trying to point fingers at the mayor, but it's the administrative or the executive branch's responsibility at that point.
Madam President,
Yes.
it's Bill Bartos again from the Law Department.
Thank you, Bill.
Yep, sorry. And to the mayor's point about the emergency, previously, when the, length of the emergency was discussed, that was before I had presented, options to the mayor, including a potential request for qualifications that could have been used to go out and continue the process on. There are options available right now to the administration to proceed. Initially, when this was initially discussed, it was an indefinite period of time. Right now, it is not indefinite. The administration does have the ability to act. I just wanted to clarify that. That is why the Law Department is saying at this point, we've presented them with a potential, contract to use. We've, looked at the contracting, and we're not saying that the city engineer role cannot be potentially filled through a firm that then presents or designates an individual. We're saying that can happen, but that individual or that firm can then not, engage in additional contracts, additional professional design services for the city. Now, I can understand why OHM might want to, continue on in that role. Their base services under the previous contract was only for $50,000, but thus far, numbers from the auditor indicate that they've been paid about $730,000. So you can see how those additional services, those can kind of those professional design services can kind of add up over time. But at this point, the emergency is not, it's not an emergent situation in that we have a path forward. The Law Department has presented a path forward, and it's just a matter of taking action. But Member Lewis is exactly correct in that it's not necessarily on, it's not on council to act at this point.
Anyone else?
Madam President, this is Councilwoman Littman.
Yes, Councilwoman Littman.
This question is posed to Mr. Bartos. Would it be advisable, based on the situation being unknown at this point, that the city administration pose the position to be filled by an individual while we are working through exactly what we are going to be ending up with, whether it's an individual and that's going to be contracted from a firm and then a separate specialty design service organization? Would it be your recommendation to begin looking for an engineer at this point, even if things change down the road where it may go to a firm or continue with OHM?
Madam President?
Yes.
Where things, I mean, the ability to act and to staff is squarely within the powers and the authorities of the mayor and the administration. That's definitely, their prerogative and their authority. But as far as, what their options are, we have previously discussed those and laid those out. One would be, potentially post the position and seek to fill that. I know that that was attempted before and it was unsuccessful. The other was, go down the route of seeking the request for going through the request for qualifications process, through that request for qualifications process that I mentioned, which is the qualification-based selection process that's, spelled out in the Ohio Revised Code. Substantial legal issues aside, it should be noted that the legislation request related to this ordinance, referred to an exercising the option to renew the previous agreement. And then the agreement itself, that you were presented purported to be a renewal. But the previous agreement did not contain a renewal clause or renewal language, unless I'm missing something. And nor did Ordinance 181/2016 contain any renewal language. So that's what I'm saying is that the process has to be carried out. So either the request for qualifications process or, go through the hiring process. But something can be done now. We have the ability to go through the process.
Problem, if I may, the problem was we were receiving conflicting information. At one point, they said, no, we couldn't hire an engineering firm. Now we can hire an engineering firm. One in the law department told us to go ahead and do it for a year. We just received so many conflicting, and two of the other attorneys from our law department told us to go forward with the contract. So we're trying to be prudent and do the correct thing. That's why we went to the Ethics Commission. And Senator Schuring agrees with our stance. And he wants to get the language changed. He's with us on being able to use OHM or a firm, because we'll go back through the QBS process, or a firm that is the superior winner of that QBS process. We're not fighting for OHM. We're fighting to be able to use a firm, because the firm allows us to have more resources at our hands for projects that ultimately we cannot afford with a single chief engineer. And that's the bottom line, is we can't afford to hire an engineer to do what we need them to do, because they're out of our cost range.
Madam President.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes, I'll start by saying I hope that the administration and the law director's office or law department continue to work on this issue and can start to provide us some clarity as to what direction we're taking. But with that said, I would like to make a motion that we table ordinance number 11-2020 until August 5th of 2020. I mean, October 5th of 2020.
Seconded by Megan Starrett.
Thank you. Roll call.
Littman,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Starrett,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Creamer,
No.
Gregg,
Yes.
Halter,
Yes.
Hernkane,
Yes.
and Lewis.
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no, to table ordinance number 11-2020 until October 5th, 2020.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ordinance number 11-2020 has been tabled till our first meeting in October, which is October 5th. Third reading ordinances, resolutions, there are none. Second reading ordinances, resolutions. Ordinance number 60, 2020.
An ordinance establishing the Massillon Small Business Assistance Program, MSBAP. And that's it.
Councilwoman Starrett.
Second reading.
Thank you. Ordinance number 60, 2020 has received second reading. Ordinance number 69, 2020.
An ordinance making certain appropriations from the unappropriated balance of the 1100 General Fund for the year ending December 31st, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lewis.
Yes, this ordinance would be the 245,000 related to the hospital expenses. A couple of things I want to discuss and explain on the front end of this. We had made preparations to go into executive session. We will only exercise that option if absolutely necessary. I think most of this conversation can happen out here in the open. I know I have had some questions, and I've spoken with the law director, and other council members have also had questions as to the exceptions to the Open Meetings Act that allow executive session. It would seem that previously when we spoke about the hospital, we did have litigation going on, and that was the exception that put us into executive session. Currently, there is no litigation, so much of the information that would be shared related to the hospital would be on the floor. However, if we do get into some specific discussions related to economic development, or basically when we start getting into the finer details where we would possibly be unloading the property, there are ways that would bring executive session into mind. And then also depending on when the question, how the questions and discussion goes this evening, we could still find ourselves in this situation where executive session may be necessary. So I just wanted to say all that just so you guys kind of know the groundwork of how things may go tonight or moving forward. With that also, we did ask last week if anybody had any questions related to the hospital property. We did not have a discussion, but I did ask the mayor to be ready to give us an update tonight. So with that said, Madam President, I would ask that we address the mayor and let her provide us an update with anything that is occurring with that property.
Mayor, if you would.
Hello, everyone again. Yes, we just completed and filled out the requested information from the VA, and that was submitted last week. They are still greatly interested in the property. We had two gentlemen coming through that Mr. Maley met and toured them last week as well. And so we're still currently working through that process. We do have another entity that we are working with and vetting financials at this time. And then another group that is very interested as well. We're not as far along with the other group as we are with the second group. So that second group is actually working with a private company to vet his personal finances and business finances, and we'll have that information soon if it's a viable candidate to assume the building. So we are having good communication with all three, but a little farther on one than the others. And the VA is still in play.
Any questions for the mayor? Councilman Hernkane?
Thank you, Madam President. Madam Mayor, I would suggest that we invite a representative from the VA to our next council meeting so they can discuss their interests with us at the council level. We never, I think, heard anything from them throughout this process.
That's not really an option. That's not how they do this. That's not how they, we've gone through a lot of different hoops with the VA. And so we have to do it on their timeline. The federal government's very different than a local or even a state entity, government entity. And so we will just have to wait to see once they look at our financial information that we've given to them, if they're willing to move forward. They may decide after they have this information that they're not willing to move forward. So as much as I would like to invite them to come in, that's really not an option. That's not how they work.
Any other questions for the mayor? Councilwoman Creamer?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Can the mayor please elaborate when she stated that they're reviewing our financial information?
No, not our financial, the business that's interested, we're reviewing their finances. And so we're actually financially vetting this company, so.
Any other questions for the mayor?
Madam President.
Councilman Lewis?
And I'm not making this, I'm just letting everyone know that I will be giving the second reading once we've had time to discuss.
Okay.
But I'm at the point now where I think at the time that we took over the hospital, I still feel confident that it was something that needed to be done. And we've gone over this, we've hashed it out numerous times, but the greatest example of that is Doctors Hospital in Perry Township. And I think that's what many of us were concerned about, that we'd have a decades-long vacant property, switching private hands time and time again. And the goal was that the city would be able to help navigate these waters and provide a benefit at the end to our community. At this time, it has still brought in more revenue than it has cost, but that day is coming where that will change. And I am very concerned about it. And I urge the administration, and I believe many members of council would agree with me, that December 31st, 2020 is a kind of like the wall. We need this property resolved by the end of 2020. And we understand that COVID has come along and that other projects have come along, but this needs to continue to be a priority, and we need to see something happen by the end of the year, is what I think many council members are starting to get a feeling or indication of.
Madam President. Madam President.
Littman,
Yes, thank you, Madam President.
go ahead.
My question is, do the other entities know about each other? Does the VA know that we have two other interested parties? Do the other interested parties know that the VA is still interested in this property? Could maybe
Mayor,
some,
Barb,
Madam,
Dave, go ahead.
Madam President, this is Dave. Yes, they do know about, I know one of the parties know about the other because they are interested in possibly partnering with the VA.
I
Okay.
guess, may I ask one more question?
Go ahead, Linda.
I think with us being able to have virtual meetings, that asking a member of the VA to have a conversation with us, even though stated it's not what they do, maybe it's not, that they do the traveling to a city that they may be interested in, but perhaps they would be interested in attending virtually to one of our meetings so that as council has additional questions related to this transaction, that we would feel a little more comfortable with the discussions as well. So I guess I would agree somewhat with Mr. Hernkane that it would be nice to have a conversation, even just virtually, with the VA to try to, make sure that we are of the understanding as to what they actually want this property and how, quote, interested they are. I would hate to put off any of the other offers in hopes of the VA if it's not something that's clearly going to happen before year end. Thank you.
Well, let me just clarify one thing, Mrs. Littman. The other entity would not be utilizing the hospital, it would be torn down. So this entity that we're talking about this evening does want to partner with the VA. So the other entity has no use for the hospital property. So I just wanted to clarify that with you. I think the VA at some point will be ready to speak with council, but they have to do their due diligence to make sure it's going to work before they're willing to come before council and discuss it. So they're still deciding if it's going to, that hospital is going to work for them. They've not finalized that at this point.
Anyone
Add
else?
anything?
Madam President,
Go ahead, Jill.
do we have a timeline? Because I just feel like the VA, we can go on. We can go on because I recall December 31st, 2019. It's now July 20th, 2020. Do we have a timeline for any entity that is interested? A hard stop date? We need to have something in front of us or we're going to move on. Is there a timeline that's been communicated to any entity?
The VA at the very beginning told us 9 months, and 9 months would be September. They told us that in December that they would be able to get through this process in 9 months. So we are waiting on that. But again, determining what they can do, what they can pay us, and what we will accept, we may not have an interest there. So I would say around by September sometime, maybe by September 30th, we should have something. We're ready to put this behind us as well, Mrs. Kramer. We could have made a decision back in April, but the VA wasn't ready at that time. And since then, we've had two other entities interested either in the hospital or in the property. And so that tells me that that 13 acres is highly marketable, and that there could be another opportunity for that property. So we're trying to find the best solution for it. And economic development, as Mr. Hernkane can tell you, he worked for me. It doesn't always happen overnight or even in several months. Hospital acquisitions take a long time, as you know, as we work through and we're able to have an agreement with Altman Massillon. So I ask you to remain patient. We are being vigilant on our end, and we're pushing as hard as we can push to get this an end in sight for all of our residents in the city.
Madam President,
Anyone else? Yes. Yes, Linda.
You're muted, Linda.
Mayor had mentioned that when they were speaking with the entities that are interested in the property, that they got a feel for that the value of this property. Do we have anything in writing that would indicate what the value would be of this property? And I'll say as a hospital or not as a hospital, as one of the entities is interested in the demolition. Should we be looking at the entities in the categories of how, what dollar figure it might bring to the city versus the need for the property or the use of the property, I guess I should say.
David, do you want to speak to that?
Well, Madam President, Ms. Libman, I think it's hard to address the value of the property based on the use of the property. We are looking to try to bring jobs. Our first and best use is to keep the facility and reopen some sort of facility that would bring jobs to that particular property. And then the value of that with regards to, what someone would pay, as you know, when you have economic development projects, especially larger ones, which this would be, most of the time they expect the city to give you something to actually, in tax breaks, jobs, tax credits, et cetera, et cetera. Those types of things have to be considered when you're looking at whatever entity would come in. And at this point in time, I mean, if you wanted to have a value, the auditor values at $6.5 million is what the auditor value is at right now. I would think that if somebody came in, $6.5 million would not be something that they would be willing to pay the city for the property. But at the same time, we are looking at it as an economic development opportunity to bring people into the facility and to create jobs or create some type of use for the property if it's tore down that would bring revenue into the city.
Anyone else?
President, Mr. Hernkane.
Yes.
The building official, Frank Silla, doesn't attend these meetings very often. I guess I'd be curious, and maybe Dave can answer if he knows. What is the current condition of the facility?
Is that Mark?
I'm sorry, Mr. Hernkane, I missed the last part of your.
What? Mr. Maley, what is the current condition of the
facility? I would say it's in very good condition. We do have a couple issues here and there, but overall it's in very good condition. Obviously the newer sections of the facility, some were built in 13, I think, and some were built maybe 20 years ago, are in excellent condition. But overall, the hospital is in fairly good condition, considering that it's been closed now since May of 18. People are very surprised, and we've tried to keep it in very good condition just for that reason.
Anyone else?
I'd be willing to, if anybody wants to see the hospital, council's always been welcome to go up and look at the facility if they'd like.
Anyone else? Councilman Lewis?
Second reading.
Thank you. Ordinance number 69, 2020 has received second reading. Ordinance number 70, 2020.
An ordinance making certain transfers in the 2020 appropriations from within the 1100 general fund for the year ending December 31st, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lewis,
Second reading.
thank you. Ordinance number 70, 2020 has received second reading. We are at number 17 on the agenda, where the public can speak on any topic that did not appear on tonight's agenda. If you wish to do so, please state your name, address, and topic you wish to discuss, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Madam President,
Yes.
Larry L.J. DeLuca, 2954 Veterans Boulevard, Southeast Massillon, Ohio. I'm really glad tonight to hear the interest, Madam President, of all the council members. It seems like I'm getting a headache because I remember this before. Another entity working with, they're very interested. There are things. I talked to the VA myself because I want to do it myself and hear it firsthand. They put a new VA up in Akron, okay? I think we're getting a little cold there and putting our hands in cold water. I really do think that, just like the dog warden thing, just like the records custodian thing, just like the affinity medical thing. If Dave Maley says it's in such good condition, Dave, why don't we have more people there at the door? I didn't even see some police the other day when I drove around the building. Maybe they were inside the building, but I thought we were supposed to have security on the outside. I'd like to check on that. You say it's in fairly good condition. And as far as the wall on this, I think Ed Lewis, my friend, is right here. We had a December 31st, 2019. That was the first wall. That wall got broken. We're now at December. Ed Lewis has set another one up, Mr. Lewis, for December 31st, 2020. I just think that we've got to do something, Council, and I'm just glad, and I will end it at this, I'm just glad that we have all this interest. I'm trying to get everybody interested in this so we can be on this because I'm getting headaches from this. It sounds like old deja vu again and again. We have people interested. We're bringing them through. And when I check with the VA, Mayor, they put something in Akron. And I just don't want to say for sure, Dave Maley and the Mayor, but I don't think they have the interest that we're being a thing. And I'm glad to see that the City Council and the folks here in Massillon, Ohio, want to see figures. They want to see how interested they are. I think that was Linda Littman. And Councilman Littman, I appreciate you for that. I thank you, Madam President. I just want to say one final thing. It's not dealing with this. The business owners downtown appreciate you, Madam President, Bill Weaver and company, and the Jen's Place in Sangria for coming out and seeing what it was. I know that Jim was out there, the councilman, and they really do appreciate that. The business owners love that, Madam President, and I also want to thank you for that. And I appreciate Diane's work and getting me information today. Thank you so much. And I'm glad to see again the council's on this. Thank you very much. Appreciate the council.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Is anyone else interested? Anyone
Madam
else from the
President,
community? Yes,
this
Mr.
is Ted
Ernst.
Hunt. Yeah, I'm not part of the public, but my screen froze and then kicked me off. Did my question come out and then get answered?
Would you repeat it?
I was going to ask Mr. Maley what the condition of the building was, specifically the roof.
I don't know if he mentioned the roof, but he's, go ahead, David.
Yeah, Mr. Hernken, I said the condition of the building is it's in I would say not very good, but good condition. Sections of it are in very good condition. There is one area that has a roof leak, but overall the roof is in very good condition. It's just one area. It's actually a very large roof, as you know. So there is one area that does have a roof leak, but overall the roof's in very good condition. And just to, I guess, reiterate the interest for the VA, which people have commented, we received a request for lease proposal from the VA. That's what the mayor had said that we filled out and sent in last week. If they're not serious, they would have not sent us basically a request for a lease proposal, which we filled out documents and sent it back to them with regards to a lease for the property.
Thank you. Anyone else from the community? Hearing none, I will say that I have been down to Sangria Stand, and If you haven't been down to see Postal Avenue, it really is lovely. To Smiley's, been to Sugar. Oh, I just had a brain freeze. The
Sugar Bowl.
thank you, the Sugar Bowl, and sitting outside, and it's beautiful downtown Massillon. The only thing that aggravates me in the group that I'm with is when a speeding car, motorcycle goes by and revs their engine, and it just ruins the whole atmosphere. But it really is very nice downtown. So thank you for all involved.
Madam President, this is the
Yeah.
mayor. May I address one more thing, please?
Yes.
I just want council to understand and know that this team that we've had working on the the Affinity Hospital has really done an outstanding job. We have a small crew that works on this, and we've never lost focus on it at all. And we have been working diligently to repurpose that property. And I just hope council knows that, and our community knows that. COVID is here, and it's kind of taken, is being marketed a little bit more than our efforts on the hospital, but that has not gone undone. We've decreased the cost on that. We fought for to decrease the value on it, so that our taxes were lower because it's not in use. I mean, we have done everything that you can possibly do to save money on the hospital property and the hospital facility. So I just want to commend the staff for doing all the good work. You may have one or two people out there that are possibly calling in or saying negative things, but this staff has done a tremendous job. And I just wanted to take a moment and commend them for all the work that they've done and the due diligence that they've done. Their heart is, and they've sweated over this and worked hard over this. And you all don't get to see behind the scenes of what we do, but we have put our whole effort on this property. So thank you so much and have a great night.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Lombardi.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Seconded by
Lewis.
meeting adjourned.